All right.
Hi everyone, it's Mick Lebinskas here from She's Building a Robot, and I'm very luckily joined by Leimin in Melbourne. How you going?
Hi.
She's trying to stay dry in Melbourne. We're here in San Francisco at the moment. It is very, 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 very hot. So that's the world for you. Lots of different weathers. So, can you tell us what you currently do as a job?
Well, currently I'm a research fellow at the Monash University, and my group is called Human-Centered AI. So we try to work on everything that's kind of deeply centered from the human perspective. And for me personally, I work on effective computing. So that's basically technology that's relating to or like influencing humans' emotions. So we would work on things like how to recognize someone's emotional states and how to model like this kind of emotional reasoning in your cognitive process. And finally, what would be classified as like an appropriate response when you know that someone is having some sort of emotions. And then for this kind of technology, the platform can be like mobile platform. For example, there are some like wearables and mobile apps for people to like manage anxiety or stress. And then we also have like for me, currently I'm trying to implement it onto a robotics platform. So I'm hoping to have like a robot assistant that's not just intelligent in helping you achieving some task. It also needs to be socially acceptable and trying to establish like a companionship, or if it's in like a team collaboration, trying to establish this sense of team collaboration with you. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm doing. I just finished my PhD like last year, so not long ago. Still, yeah, just exploring my field as well.
Okay, sounds good. And do you remember how you first got into technology and computers? Like, what was your first interaction? Was it a course or at school, or did somebody buy you a computer?
Well, I have always been a huge sci-fi fan, so I read a lot of books since little, and I like Asimov's I, Robot. And then in there, they have this main character, which is who is called Susan, like Dr. Susan Kaufman, and she is a robot psychologist. And like the book is a collection of all short stories, but kind of all the things that happened in her career. I thought, oh, that's really cool. And then I think it was in high school I came across this book called Effective Computing by Professor Rosalind Picard from MIT. And then I thought, wow, that's really shocking. Like there's a real life Dr. Susan Calvin out there. So that got me into the field of effective computing and start reading more in the area. And decided to go and study artificial intelligence for my undergrad. And then afterwards, yeah, for like my undergrad thesis project, I was doing emotion recognition already, and then that sort of just continued on as my master and PhD at Edinburgh University, and now I'm continuing at Monash University, just trying to be like an independent researcher.
Wow, fantastic. Okay. Great that you got starting with sci-fi and reading those books and getting excited about it. That's really, really good. What's your thoughts on AI at the moment? There's a lot of discussion around, number one, that it's actually just sort of applying it's applying rules that sort of under the hood. It says it's AI, but really it's just programming.
Right.
And then the next big question is, some people are scared of AI and the impact it's going to have on humanity. Like, what are your thoughts on the realities of the now and the future?
Yeah, so I think for AI and also for my own field, effective computing, we're kind of transforming from the initial stage of, oh, that's really awesome what you're doing, to, okay, that sounds a little bit creepy now, and is there anything in place that can make sure the things you're doing is safe, it's regulated, it's actually going to help us instead of like leading to extinction of the species or something like that. And so I think it's because like in earlier stages, you think of AI more like, oh, that's a cool thing, that's a nice little tool, it does a lot of interesting things, but it's not yet smart enough to make you feel threatened of, like, before you see all the robots like falling and walking and then just slide and fall. You think, oh, that's cute. But then now they can do all kinds of things like back flipping, and then people start, like I saw people commenting on YouTube videos of Boston Dynamics and also the MIT's that Leopard robot of, it's funded by DARPA, so maybe one day it'll be chasing after us and shooting at us. And so people start to get more concerned about this, and there's always the debate of, they're coming to steal our job kind of feeling. Yeah, so I think it's partially from we are most of the time we are publishing in our own research field, so we discuss about like the technical advances and we have proposed new models, we get better performance, but like usually you have a limited space in there, so you left all of these kind of ethical concerns and like implications of how to fair use it like out of the context. But the researchers these days are getting more aware of, okay, if we want to apply this technology and help people in their actual life, then we also need to develop like proper guidelines for what kind of research need to be developed and how should we make sure that it's used like in the designed way, because sometimes the technology can be misused. Like we could develop like facial recognition, but we also don't want it to be used in a way of stalking citizens of a government and invading someone's privacy. So there are more and more discussions, workshops, and like panel discussions, like major conferences, and all the leaders in our fields are kind of trying to get into dialogue with like public sectors, with like law, philosophy, other domains, like or like in medical area, if you are developing something for medical use, to get other people's like professional view and sort of a joint collective effort to make sure that now our technology is getting matured enough to be applied. How do we ensure that it helps human and helps the society, more like assisting us to get our own goal instead of replacing humans or or like a dystopian future that's always portrayed in science fictions. Sorry, I can't hear your...
Sorry, I was muted. Forgot to touch
it.
Yeah. In my book, I talk about the 3 laws of robotics.
Yes.
For those who haven't read my book or yet, because it's not quite out, or haven't read Asimov's books, can you tell us about the 3 rules and why they're important?
Yeah, so if I remember correctly, for the 3 roles robotics, first you have the robot that are not allowed to harm human, or by doing nothing allowing a human to be harmed. And secondly, the robot needs to like follow the instructions and given by human, trying to make sure that it carry out the task. And then thirdly, the robot needs to, unless in the second row, you need to follow the instruction unless it's conflicting with the first law. And then in the third law, it's like the robot needs to preserve its self-existence unless it's conflicting with the first and the second law. And then I think later on, Asimov actually developed there's a rule 0 as well, when you kind of upscale it from individual human to human as a species. So it's like the debate of, if you are trying to ensure the existence of human as a species, then can you like conflict with, like, for example, rule number 1 of someone is going to press the nuclear button, should the robot stop it by harming the human or not, and to ensure the like existence of the whole human species. So that's an interesting discussion. I mean, most of the times when you design a set of like very elaborate rules, you can always find counter examples and some kind of logic loophole that cause a lot of issues, or sometimes they need to be a case by case base. But we are, I think, I forgot which country, it might be South Korea, who is in the process of trying to like propose a set of laws like, to regulate the use of AI technology. And there are, I think there's one researcher I talked to, the group at there's a group at University of Bath who is also actively involved in trying to advise on the legalization of using of AI technology, and we also have some like not really legal documents, but like guidelines of what's the ethical codes for designing your AI research, and like who do you collaborate with, and how do you make sure your technology is being used properly. For the three laws, we don't have like an exact implementation of the actual three laws of Asimov's iRobot just yet. Yeah, and then every group may have their own like procedure to ensure like ethical research procedure, and but I don't think there's like a agreed upon rule, just like the three laws of robotics that's been used by all AI researchers. We more design our own rules, and sometimes if your research have different focus, you may adjust different like ethical code. And like at Monash University, when you're trying to do research, before you actually conduct any research, you first need to apply for an ethical clearance. So in there, you need to state what's the purpose of your research, and like when you're doing experiments that involve humans or human data, then how are you going to ensure the ethic of the experiment procedure and dealing with the data, and what's the potential application of your research outcome. So you need to list all of these and get the approval before you can actually conduct your research. So I think most universities engage in this kind of procedure to kind of approve research case by case scenario, and making sure that we're doing our best to ensure we have a safe and ethical research.
Yeah, very important, really interesting. And did you find any challenges being a woman in studying AI and in computers?
Yeah, so I mean, traditionally there are not that many girls in STEAM, and people are trying to increase the number of like students and also staff researchers in the STEAM area. But like for me, when I was doing my undergrad, I think for our whole class of 28 students, there were only 4 female students. So that's a really huge racial difference. And then when I moved to Edinburgh University, I think for PhD students, we have about 20% overall in the School of Informatics who are female. And that's still like far from 50%, but the university was doing a lot of things trying to improve the percentage, like encourage female applicants, and having all these workshops where you have like senior female staff who come and give you advice and ask if you have any difficulties and help you with it. And also at the Monash University, there are also like the equality and diversity committee that try to encourage in like female applicants, and ensure that for a lot of female researchers, kind of hard to continue on with the career. So a lot of them drop out at earlier stage. So doing things to try to support them to. And there are also like society views, like stereotypes about like, oh, you're a girl in STEAM, then you must be like nerdy, or like I'm from China myself, and so in like China and a lot of East Asia countries, women are not really like, if you are a PhD and female and you're in STEAM, then that's kind of like the deadly combination of, oh, you're never going to get married kind of feeling. So there would be a stress from like family side of things. Like for me, I think I'm lucky in the sense of my parents are both engineers, so they design trains, cargo trains. So they gave me support when I told them I want to do AI for my undergrad. And I also later on when I decided to go abroad and do PhD, and so they gave me a lot of support. But there are also like other relatives who don't understand. Oh, why are you doing artificial intelligence? What is that? And that sounds really difficult. Why can't you do something more girly? Or what do you mean you're already like when you're doing PhD, you're usually like 25, kind of around that age, when it's traditional viewed as, okay, now it's the time you go get married and get kids. And so there are this kind of pressure from society, from family side, and I imagine a lot of like a lot of the students or staff who are already in the STEAM area could be like having a lot of this kind of stress that can be damaging to their career. Like for us, I think we started actually in our class. We started with 6 girls, and in the end, only 4 girls finished, and the other 2, one of them changed major. One of them went to a different university, like in 3rd year. Well, both of them were still in STEAM, so that is really good. But for like my mom, in her time, it was even more difficult. So she started as having 4 female in her class, and only 2 finished. One of them just dropped out of school. Like she actually had mental like some kind of troubling on depression or related condition. So she dropped out of university, and I think the other one probably changed major to not STEAM major. So it was harder back then even, and these days it's people are trying to make improvements, but we can still see there are this stress and inequality that still exists that could be extra difficult for female who are considering having a career in STEAM.
Yeah, I understand. Well, that's amazing. And for any young woman who's excited about sci-fi or thinking about AI or robotics, she's a teenager who maybe likes maths or computers. What's your advice about pursuing this as a career?
Well, I think just go for it. It's a lot of fun. Like I had a lot of fun doing my research. There are sometimes like really difficult times and can be really challenging from time to time. But the reward is also like really huge, and mostly when you're doing something that you really like, you really have passion for, then nothing compares. So like you could go through a lot of hair pulling of why I cannot debug this code, why it just doesn't work, and then at one point it works, you go, oh yes. So that kind of feeling of achievement is really awesome. And then you also know that you're doing something that's making real impact. So that gives you a lot of motivation as well. And I think there are a lot of support that are in place or are being developed to support people to support female to do a STEAM career. So I would expect things will get better, like with a year progressing, just like my situation was a lot better than when my mom was doing her when she was doing her undergrad. So I would expect it gets better continuing on.
That's awesome. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for chatting and really sharing your story. You are definitely a role model and inspiration for young women in tech, and
thank you.
My goal of writing the book is to just encourage young women to think that there is options. It is okay to do it. It's a good thing to do it. It is challenging, but there are other rewards, exactly as you said. And the reason I do these interviews is to show them it doesn't just take fiction. There are actually real women who are doing this. So that's great. Glad you're enjoying it.
I think it's really great what you're doing, and I also get inspired a lot myself by like female role models. Like all my PhD supervisors, both of them are female, and my current supervisor at Monash University is also female. My mom is female, and the robot psychologist in the book is female. Rosalind Pickard, also female professor. So there are a lot of these role models, and they give me a lot of strength in surviving this process as well. So,
fantastic.
yeah, I'm hoping that your book will provide a lot of motivation, inspiration for females these days considering doing a STEAM career as well.
Look, honestly, I have no false expectations that it's going to change the world.
But for those who want to do a career in STEAM, like they get the strength they need for continuing on, like especially when you get like outside pressure. For example, people are asking, why are you not like more girly or something? Then yes.
Yeah, fantastic. That's definitely the goal, and I think we're making progress. It'll take some more time because it is a generational thing, but I do think we're making progress slowly. And as a dad of 2 daughters, I'm really excited that things are going in the right direction. So glad things are going well for you. Wonderful to hear everything about it, and thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Thank you.
No problems.